I'm Jeremiah Lieberman, and I haven't made a play that makes me feel really good to be a part of.
Today we are haven't made yet.
Wait, start at the beginning. What is this called? What are we doing?
Hello and welcome to Haven't Made It Yet. I'm Hayden Garrett.
Why did you say that with a really small mouth? I'm Yannick David.
Here we go. You said another version the last time I used it.
Not a different physical version.
People can't see that.
Well, they can
feel the mousiness of that intro.
Hello. Do you feel me barely using my lips?
Stop. Use your full range of mouth.
Sometimes you just want to not use all your lips.
In Germany, you call that making a shit.
Making a shit?
A shit, no.
A shipper, which means you make a little shovel with the bottom of your mouth. When somebody's like upset, pouting.
I'm very pouting.
Anyway, this is the podcast.
This is a podcast, and you're listening to it.
And today we have one of my all-time best friends and biggest inspiration, Mr. Jeremiah Lieberman.
Here we go.
I am really interested in acting, and I have been my whole life. Making it for me would just be, at this point in my life, just having that in my life in a continuous way where like I'm able to live off it at least a little bit. Like that for me right now, that would be making it.
How have you been kind of going about doing that?
I mean, I feel like Yannick and I have been always been making like weird little videos and stuff that have kind of like kept me going as like something to do to like put that into. But I've also just been like going to school and like thinking about getting my degree in this, and I'm gonna be like producing and acting in The Aliens by Annie Baker in June. So that's like my next big thing for it. And then just keep doing a little bit of something regularly.
And you're like nonstop coming out with characters, even if you don't do anything with them, and just harass your fiance with them.
Yes, yeah. In my day-to-day life, I have like at least 3 characters a day that are just coming on through me like a hot cup of coffee, and they just come in one end and come out the other, and I don't know. I just channel whatever's there.
What are the 3 right now?
This morning, I was listening to Mad World by Gary Jules.
Okay. Great start.
And I don't have 2 more, but there was a lot coming up for me while I was listening to Mad World by Gary Jules. And it turned into this whole thing, and I think I need to go to karaoke this weekend so that I can sing that song.
Yeah, just get it out.
just try out some angles.
I need to work something out because it was powerful what was moving through me. I don't know.
It's gonna pass like a liver stone. I always say liver stones, kidney stones.
Yeah, kidney stone.
Both
kidney
of
stone.
which are not great.
Yeah.
If your liver creates stones, then I'm worried about that.
Any stones in your body is just not a good deal. But yeah, if you've ever seen the Tears for Fears Mad World music video, that's like my inspiration for how I dance. There's this one little dance sequence that this guy has, and he just uses his hands and like no legs whatsoever.
I've seen that, yeah.
I don't know if I've seen Gary Jules really popularized that song for me. I don't know if I've seen Tears for Fears. Like I know they wrote it, but something about the sad,
it's so sad,
beautiful tone. and I think it's also funny how he like so perfectly encapsulated like preteen angst with his voice, and also just in that song it's like it's an adult man singing it, but I feel like every 12-year-old on earth like listens to that song and like cries a little bit, you know.
Last time I visited him, I got him a steampunk pair of goggles with like a little light on one thing and like a binocular on the monocular thing on the other one. And I have that as your profile photo now, and every time I'm like, oh boy, like what's gonna grow out of this,
dude. And the canvas hood too from that jacket that I got, like paired with the steampunk glasses, like I didn't even have to do anything. I just felt like that was a character on its own.
Yeah, like a weird medieval like scientist that is like been entrapped by a king to like work out how to make gold or something. I don't know.
Yeah, an alchemist just like in his tower, just like focused in, and playing Magic the Gathering too, I feel like was a big part of that character.
Yeah. Listening to Mad World in his tower, just trying to tinker out.
Yeah, just trying to work out the world's problems.
So it sounds like you two have like a long history. How long has this friendship been happening?
Yannick and I met in the 5th grade. We went to this like Waldorf school, a Rudolf Steiner style private school that we both ended up going to by the grace of God. And we were dive bombing people in the pool, I think, and like jumping in on them, which is very dangerous now that I think back on it. And but we were just vibing on doing that, jumping in on people. And then Yannick took me over to his stepdad's Mazda Miata, and was he didn't speak English, but he was telling me like that he would notate every time that they would drive in the Miata. He had like check marks on a page that he was notating that, and I was like, that's sick. And that's how it started.
I was an OCD child.
also I remember just thinking that car was so cool, but like now when I see like a Mazda Miata going around, like they're such funny little cars.
They're like a dwarf sports cars, very goofy looking.
Yes.
Yannick's told me a lot about Waldorf schools, but for our listeners, kind of explain like the experience of being in that environment.
Yannick, I think you should explain Waldorf schools.
Waldorf schools. It's like kind of like a bubble of like hippie thought, like a little safe haven for like upper class hippie parents, and then some others sprinkled in there. Everything you do, you draw pretty much. Everything you learn, you draw or write in cursive. Like we had all these everything we'd learn. If we had to read a text, we would then have to copy it into our books in cursive and then draw an image to it. For example, if we learned about Gandhi, it would be a portrait of Gandhi in whatever medium we were studying at the time, sometimes watercolor, whatever it was. Then with that text, and then everything is broken up into like chunks of history or math, and then that's a chapter in a book that you then bind at the end of the year. So all that writing and drawing and everything is turned into it's called a main lesson book. And then for every year you got that main lesson book.
Yeah, I've lost all my main lesson books.
That's a bummer. I actually don't know where mine are either, but I feel like I would not have thrown those away because they're just so goofy, and like it's just like a lot of work, even if it's kind of like bad drawings, but it's just a lot because now we all have, for every year we got this much of a book.
Can you go back to them and be like, oh yeah, I remember that lesson plan, or you're just like looking at these?
Well, I mean, if you're spending like 8 hours drawing Gandhi, you know, that fucker's burned into your brain.
It would be like, I feel like homework would take so long because we would sometimes just spend hours drawing like a portrait or something. And I still remember a lot of those lessons because I'm going to college again now. And like, I will have like little tidbits of information come up from Waldorf school. I don't know. I just feel like it worked, whatever it was. I also think that it's really interesting that like Waldorf school typically is like higher class kids, but at our Waldorf school, I don't know if it was like because they had a lot of scholarships or what, but we had a really interesting sprinkling of kids from like different socioeconomic backgrounds that I feel like made like that experience a special. Like we had like, I don't know, just all sorts of different people there, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that until I was describing it, that like, yeah, we were a pretty colorful group of backgrounds.
And we didn't have to do arrhythmy.
Yeah, it was a lot tamer in the US than it was in Germany, but the dancing in the dresses is a part of it. And any weird hippie activity you could imagine, dancing on a maypole, we had it. But I think I was just going to say, I think there's something to writing everything that you also read, because that's how I memorize things. I write them, you know, even if it's for like a dialogue for a script, I would just write all my lines 6 times, and then you just have them in your brain because you're like adding another layer of memorizing and muscle memory in a way.
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience. And sometimes in my life, I'll have to like write a sign or something for some restaurant I'm working at or something, and I'll remember the calligraphy from Waldorf school, and I'll bust out a beautiful ass sign for just randomly. Just bust that shit out.
Bust it out.
And would you say that experience kind of brought you into acting, or where did acting come from in your life?
It's interesting because I have memories of wanting to be an actor before I'd ever done it. Like, I remember being like, I also like maybe unusually so remember like my early childhood, but I remember being like 5 years old and thinking to myself like, man, I want to be like Johnny Depp one day. And now that I'm an adult, I don't want to be anything like Johnny Depp, but in my little child head, I was like, I want to be an actor. And then when I think I was like 6 or 7, I did like a production of like Peter Pan. And then in Waldorf school, every year we would do a play. And so I would get a lot of it that way. And like, we had like an 8th grade project where I did like Shakespeare monologues for my project. And I would say it definitely moved along. Also, my mom like always really encouraged me to be doing creative things. Like, it's almost like how some people's parents encourage them to do well in school. I felt like my mom was always putting pressure on me to keep doing creative stuff.
Yeah. You're like, I don't want to stop, Mom.
Yeah.
Just want to live my life.
Yeah, like almost like uncomfortably so. Yeah.
Let me be an accountant.
Yeah.
No, but I'm grateful for that because I think it's really important. And I kind of fell out of it for a while, like maybe during the pandemic, and I was doing like personal training for a little while and different things. But I decided to go back to school, and I took like a theater class just at Lane Community College. And I was like, oh yeah, I love this. Like, why am I not continuing to pursue this? So it kind of got me back on track.
Awesome.
I want to quickly share my earliest memory of Jeremiah acting, which I think it was in 5th grade. And I didn't know a lot of English, but we did this Greek play where there was this king, and Jeremiah was the king, and Jeremiah was really embodying this like powerful, loud, booming voice king. Mm-hmm. And there was this, like, he had the robes and everything, and his cue, I don't remember what your cue was, but the line was "Poor Danae," and he had to just shout it out, and he got the cue wrong. So like the scene was like maybe just 1/3 of the scene left or whatever, and Jeremiah blasts onto the stage with all this power he had built up, and just "Poor Danae."
Yeah, and I remember that my cue was the girl walking onto stage, Nahani walking onto stage. And she also helped with the set change before. So she walked on for the set change. I walked on. I was like, "Poor Danae." And she turned around and just like looked at me. And like, she didn't even like have an expression on her face. It was almost just like I had delivered that line to a robot or something. And then I just like backed off stage. And I never lived it down. I still get reminded of it to this day.
Every day.
Every day.
What are friends for?
Yeah.
And what kind of a theater experience have you had through your career? Has it been more like play, one acts, musicals?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, at this point in my life, I think the bulk of my theater experience was when I was in high school. Although our high school was pretty sick. We had like one of the best theater programs in the state, if not one of the best in the country. It definitely a really, really good one because Oregon Shakespeare Festival is in the town where we live, and it's such a big theater. So we did musicals. I starred in like The Drowsy Chaperone, which is a musical, and I did like ensemble and a couple others. I think what I've like enjoyed doing the most is just scenes from plays in different classes or whatever. I did I went to Cornish College of the Arts for like a year and did lots of different scenes and one acts and stuff like that in that experience. So the play that I'm doing in June, I actually did a scene for a theater class like last spring. And sometimes I think just doing that one scene, it inspired me so much that I was like, I want to do like this whole play. So I'm going to figure that out. So Sarah, my fiance Sarah, is going to direct it. And I would say that's my main theater experiences.
You didn't end up finishing the entire Cornish program, right? Tell me about a little bit about some of what the classes were like. I remember you saying that, like, just like the strangeness of studying acting and what that was like.
There were some really amazing experiences and there were some not so good experiences. I honestly think mainly it was flavored by that I was just like not in a place in my life where I could sort of persevere. I remember at the time thinking like certain experiences, like my teacher saying, okay, like you're going to be a slug and you're going to, with your partner, swirl around each other, slimy and clinging to each other, and in remaining in contact at all times, pretend to be a slug with your scene partner. And I like got a partner that I didn't want to work with for that. And I was just like, didn't want to do it. I was just like, hell no. And I was like angry and not open-minded to those experiences like that. I think now it sounds weird, but I feel like I'd be more willing to try it. It's really intense to put yourself into the mindset of a slug sometimes.
A salty slug.
And then other times we're like really just like meditating and like purposeful movement and just channeling and improvising different things. And those were like pretend to be like a fire spirit or like weird stuff like that I actually really enjoyed. Like just channeling something in particular so that I think the whole purpose of theater school and Cornish in particular was just like, how do you do all of the weird things that a person can do so that when it comes time to do other stuff, you're completely uninhibited to do just regular stuff on stage.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it kind of, just the way you described it kind of speaks to your acting, that you didn't want to do a slug because picturing yourself having to, because you would go all the way and then be a slug, like if somebody were to tell me that, I would be like, sure, I'll do a slug, but you're like, I don't want to I'm gonna have to feel the slug.
I'm gonna have to like really be the slug.
Yeah. Well, I feel like being a fire spirit, I've seen you pretend to be a fire spirit when you were like 11. So I think that one, I could see you nailing that one. No problem.
Yeah. I feel like now if I were to go back, I would just tell me to do anything. I will be a slug until the day I die. I will commit.
Do you have any kind of improv background?
Yes, I feel like my main improv background is just being friends with Yannick. I feel like we were doing just like improv, just being weird, like always. And then I did like an actual improv troupe too in middle school and high school. And then for some of college, I did improv troupe as well. And all of the videos that Yannick and I have done, I think all of them have been improvised if I'm in them. Like nothing has been written down. I'm just like...
Yeah, that's why I ask, because I mean the video that's going to be coming up, and we'll talk about it in a bit. That was pretty much all improv. You all just kind of thought that up on the spot, and your delivery every single time was just spot on. It was so awesome. Just like I was already laughing before it was happening, just because I knew it was going to be hilarious.
Dude, I don't even know. I don't know where. Sometimes I think that the best characters I have just like come to me in dreams, or I've had a couple like the You Do the Math guy, and then this one. I think I have like dreams about these characters, and then I'm like, whoa, that is so trippy, and then I start to act like them, and then it doesn't even matter what I say because everything I say is just that character. And I honestly, I thought that video was going to be trash. Like when I was doing it, I was like, I don't know if this is going to be funny. Like I'm just saying like whatever is coming into my head. And then you did such a good job editing it. I feel like there was some gold there. It's so hilarious.
I always had faith in it, just based on some of the stuff that like you conjured up. Yeah. When you watch those videos back, will you just go? It's essentially the whole thing. It's just you just come up with a character and then just riff and until it dies. Yeah, I know with You Do the Math guy, you never wanted to do that guy again because it was so draining. Yeah. When you look at those videos again, are you ever like, who the hell is this? Or does your like body and soul remember the actions you did, or is it just kind of a blur and then you see the product and you're like, what is this? I would like to move away from feeling like my characters are me when I look at them,
But I do feel like right now, usually when I watch characters, I can totally access those feelings. And for the most part, the You Do the Math one, I did have trouble with after we did it because it was so draining for some reason to do that character. I think it was just a lot of energy. I don't know. I didn't do that character again for a long time. Every so often it'll come up and I'll say to myself, you do the math. But for the most part, I just like, I can't even do it anymore. But yeah, when I watched the video that we did recently, I totally feel like I remember doing that. I feel like I could still access that. And it's like definitely not a character that I feel like is dead yet. I could still do more.
It's interesting also when I show those videos to my like hippie, very reading into things, parents and their friends, their reaction to some of these, because the You Do the Math guy, they thought was like very sad. Like they thought it was funny, but like I think they saw like the sadness of the character that you mine from that, which is something I would have never thought of. And maybe that's why you're more drained from it, because you were like tapping into like the desperation, because it's like a desperate character. Like he's the character, for context, is, if you want to describe it real quick.
So the character is a bargainer, a numbers guy, a man who will buy something for $5, maybe put $10, $20 into parts and fixing it and sell it for $3. So he's just constantly gypping himself by like bargaining like putting money into something and buying it and then selling it for lower. And I think honestly part of the draining part of that character too was just all of the faulty math that I was doing in my head all the time.
But it's also, he's the kind of gag in the background is he's telling people you do the math, the way, colloquially it's used, but really he's asking people to do the math because he genuinely doesn't know, but that's not something he can admit because he's a business guy. So he's like asking for help, but he can't let himself ask for help. So it's like,
yeah, he's always saying you do the math, and he actually needs that to happen. Can you please do the math, please?
Please. Yeah, we'll put a link in the bio of You Do the Math. That's still on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
You can access it. Yeah. So let's go into this video you all made recently of this character.
Jeremiah Lieberman, right?
The Jeremiah Liebermans are I did notice that too in the initial intro. Jeremiah Liebermans are the followers, but this character is just Jay Liebs.
Both of you talked about that process of like kind of coming up with that concept and then getting to that character. And is it once you get to that character, is it a lot of you, Jeremiah, just kind of going up and Yannick's just there to help you, or is it kind of a back and forth?
Well, I had this character a long time before Yannick and I filmed this video. I might have had this character for years, like kind of slowly developing, like kind of on the side, because I've always found the idea of like having a following to be really funny. And I think sometimes I'll just wake up in the morning and I'll like just literally film me and Sarah. Like she'll be like really tired or like doing something weird. And I'll be like, hey, Jay Liebers, good morning. Welcome, and I'll just go like into this thing and start giving advice, or whatever comes to me. So when Yannick visited, I just felt like it was a perfect opportunity. Also, the cigar outfit that I have no idea like why or where that outfit came from. It wasn't originally part of the character, but somehow it worked perfectly. The Blunt Master like cigar wrap thing.
Well, Jeremiah and I obviously have like a good rapport, and like making these things kind of make sense to us at least. So anytime there's a character, I just try to like put it into some sort of context, or like just be like kind of a neutral something for him to bounce off of. And that's kind of my character is just like an interviewer, and I mean you added the context of putting like more of an intro, making that more of a thing. But I honestly think those characters work just as like a standalone without context, but it's like a little easier to digest when you're like, who's this guy and why are we talking to him?
Totally. I think that intro was a great idea. I was watching, have you guys ever seen Bowser vids before?
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, he is a character guy he was on like early YouTube, but I think he still makes stuff, and he just like has these hilarious characters that he does one-off videos of, and he often sort of inlays his character into like a news thing. So it will be like some type of like a sinkhole opening or something, and they'll be interviewing regular people, and then he'll cut in himself being interviewed. And I feel like it just makes it so much funnier because, like you said, Yannick, it's like also partly having that like straight, like sort of something to bounce off of, kind of.
Yeah. I just love, I mean, I think I get it from my Monty Python a lot, but I love the concept of like leading people into something of like, this is what you're about to receive. And then just like all of that just falls apart. Like everything falls apart the second we see your character. Like all the story is just gone.
Like he doesn't want to talk about Sean Baker. He doesn't want to talk about anything really. He just wants to do his own. He just wants to live his life.
My favorite part is when I'm showing you the karambit. And I'm like, throat slit. And I can tell in the cut that we just started laughing so hard after that take.
You hardly even finish the sentence, like even in this current cut. That's just so dumb. That's something I'm learning. Putting that context there is super important because you know what you think is normal and how what you're making is not normal. But the other people that are watching don't know that. So you kind of need to tell them, hey, this is not my normal. This is like a weird thing. And so you need to put something normal next to it. And that for some reason in my brain, that's never... I'm just like now figuring that out.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, it's so easy to be abstract, especially with somebody that you're comfortable with. And like, you know me really well, you know exactly what's going on, like sort of with my characters and in my head. But I think lots of people are not, like, they need to be introduced to us / you know, whatever the character is.
Do you have future characters that you're hoping to channel soon?
I have nothing in the workshop right now, but like I said with the Mad World character from this morning, they're coming up all the time, and whenever Yannick and I are around each other, I feel like usually if we want to film something can be like brought up, and or like unexpectedly in the next couple months until we like see each other again, I'm sure like one of us will have some stroke of inspiration that we like can use, but I could never say exactly what it will be.
Where do you usually get your inspiration of, like, is it usually like some random person you meet along the road, or just kind of a collection of like stuff you watch on TV or movies?
Definitely, I feel like there are characters that I have met like who will inspire something. I feel like often Yannick and I will send each other just like pictures of strangers that we think are interesting. But I feel like for the most part, my characters come from like some like zany part of myself that like for whatever reason I just like act out as my sense of humor, or it's almost like a way to let off nervous energy for me sometimes, I think. And also I like I mentioned earlier, sometimes I will get like particular creative inspirations like from dreams, or just like something will kind of just come to me as something that I think is funny. And often the best things I think are just things that I think are funny. And as long as I think it's really funny, I'm able to like channel it confidently, and then it works. So, yeah.
You said you think it might be sometimes like a way to get nervous energy off to like do a character. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Sometimes because I will just do it like throughout my day. And I think sometimes it's just like almost a way for me to blow off energy or excess energy that I have or something.
How much would you say some of these characters are pieces of you, and a way you can like put this aspect of yourself out without having people kind of think that this is part of you? This is just a character. As an example, I interviewed one of the ducks from University of Oregon, one of the duck mascots. And when he put on that mask, when he put on like the puddles,
when I put on the mask,
he literally said like, I felt like I had so much control. Like I could literally take candy from a baby and people would laugh. Like I had that kind of power. And then I started to realize that this is still me. This is like, I'm still the person inside the mask doing these things. It's not, but he's able to get away with all these things, and everyone's like, oh, this is a showman, this is a funny guy, and he's like, but this is all me at the end of the day. I'm doing all this.
Right. Yeah, that's a great example. That reminded me of clowning, like being a clown as an art form too, because they're like at Cornish there was like a whole class system like dedicated to learning how to be a clown, and it's this whole very interesting, very involved phenomena where you like create this mask almost, where you like when you put on that mask, like what you just said, where you can, I don't know, people just will do all sorts of things and be less inhibited than they normally are. But for myself, I think that they are not aspects of me, because like the you do the math guy and the Jay Lieb's like advice page and all this different stuff is actually not how I am at all in my regular life. But I do feel like in some ways maybe I'm channeling like an alternate universe version of me, because I feel like my body and my voice like lends itself to those characters like well, obviously, because it's me doing it. But if you know me, like I'm not that person, so it's not me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that could you be you in another life, but you don't really kind of identify with them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like alternate universe me.
At the end of the day, you take off the mask and you're still you. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think Yannick knows. I think I'm actually pretty serious a lot of the time. I'm not like I have like a lot of like weird OCD things, and I don't know. I'm silly too, but you know, obviously when we're like trying to be funny, it's always different than how you are actually.
Totally.
Yeah.
Where would you want to take your experience in the future? Let's say like 5 years time, where would you want your acting experience to go?
I love doing all the like skits and stuff that Yannick and I do, and I'd love to do more of them in the future. But also I think my primary love in acting is stage acting. And in 5 years, I grew up in Ashland, where the Oregon Shakespeare Festival is, and I'd really love to like move towards at least auditioning there, acting there, or just doing something on a stage somewhere that I'm getting paid to do would be my 5-year goal. And just like keep going to school too. I want to get my bachelor's degree in theater.
This is a great segue for my favorite question of the time capsule question. Talking to you in 10 years, what is a message you'd like to leave for yourself? Maybe advice, or maybe just some nugget for you in 10 years. This is how we guarantee the longevity of this podcast.
Yeah, getting the people to listen.
Just one more click in 10 years.
Yeah. Well, first thing I'd say, what's up, you little bitch? Hope you're doing fine. Hope you're living large, dude, taking charge, drinking big smoothies every day, staying healthy, lots of fiber in that diet. And I hope you're all up on that stage, sliming that shit, getting real slimy with the stage, building your empire. And if you don't mind, I'd like to quote from DJ Khaled's motivational speech.
I don't mind at all.
You loyal. I appreciate you. You changed a lot. You can too. Oh, it doesn't really make sense when you're talking to the person, but win, win, win no matter what. Them doors that were closed, I took the door off and I took the hinges off and I put the hinges in the fuckboy's hands. Yeah, I took the whole door off and I took the hinges off and I put the hinges in the fuckboy's hands. You can too. So that's what I would say to my future, from my future self to my past self.
Was it really all DJ Khaled?
I feel like it should be.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
What an icon.
One of my role models.
It's really interesting because we actually just did an interview a couple weeks ago with my friend Connor Brown, who is kind of doing similar things with you. Of like he doesn't really want to go to New York or LA. He likes living in Portland, Oregon, and just continuing doing film, doing his own projects. And something that I feel like we missed in that interview that I forgot to ask, and I want to ask you, is kind of some tips and tricks to get them going. So like if someone lives in a small town and still wants to pursue acting and still wants to make films or any of that aspect of art, what would you kind of suggest they should be doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it has taken me some time to come to my own answers for it, because I do think you have to ultimately create your own answers for things like that. I learned or I was able to teach myself through different educational experiences that I can build whatever I want to build. And the way that I do it and the way that I have done it and can do it in the future is by just building connections. And the way for me to do that is to go to school. So I have been going to just community college, but I apply myself really intensely to all my, like, especially my theater classes, but all my classes, and building connections with the teachers and stuff. And I think that it was through like that effort and also that intentional connection building with the chair of the theater department, who's also the theater teacher, that we're going to be able to put on this play in June. He's going to pay for the rights and like give me all the tech people that we need and help us get it popping. And I think that was all just from showing that I am here to do this, and nothing's holding me back, and I'm not giving you any bullshit about it or like running around like not pretending I'm applying myself to something that I actually don't want to apply myself to. So I think what's important for people who want to build something in like a local community is to just show that you're there to work. And I think that's actually a very rare thing. Most people show up and don't seem to be willing to apply themselves. So I think just applying yourself goes a really long way.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. Just making it known. I mean, just being in a theater class doesn't make the teacher know or the professor know that you want to be there.
Right.
So actually going to the next step.
Yep. It's like having your stuff memorized when you're supposed to have it memorized. Like little things like that lots of people actually don't do. Like they will, there were people in my theater classes, and this is fine. It's community college. Like, who cares? I'm sure lots of them are not like actually thinking about going into acting, but there were people who didn't have any of their material memorized for the entire term. And they were supposed to have it memorized like at the beginning of the term. And so I don't know, just it goes a long way.
I have a kind of out of context question. I was talking to this guy yesterday, and I was telling him I'm a huge improv fan, and mainly through doing improv with you and being really, I don't know if I've ever said this, but very in awe of your ability to improv. I mean, we both kind of improv, but you're obviously that's something you do very well, and that's kind of a big reason why I like improv. And I'm so glad that you're returning to an acting place. I think you're meant to act. And every time you work in a pizza shop, my soul cries a little bit. It's part of the process, but I just want to see more of that. Being such a big improv fan, I was talking to this guy, and he was just saying he's like, I don't think improv is it. It's just not as good as acting. It just doesn't get the respect acting does, and I don't think it compares. And I was just kind of like dumbfounded, trying to like make my case, but I couldn't really put it into words. This like comparing regular acting and improv, and he was saying regular acting will just always be more impressive and better. And I was kind of like, if I'm feeling the same emotion that somebody has not worked out in the writing room from a performance that they're just making up right then and there, I feel like that's if more impressive, if not the same amount of impressive. But how do you feel about, is there a difference between regular acting and improv? Because in a way, when you're acting off of lines, you're adding your own maybe physicality to it, even if it's not lines. So you're improving in that way as well. Is it two different things? Is it the same for you? Do you think one is more noble and can reach greater heights?
That's also a great question. And also, I appreciate you saying that about my acting. Like, working in the pizza shop, I've worked in a lot of pizza shops now, makes my soul cry a little bit too. And that's one of the reasons that I went back to school. And I just want to do more of it. But I agree. But let me backtrack. I read Sanford Meisner's book recently, and Sanford Meisner is like a really famous acting teacher, and he talks a lot about the preparation that an actor does before they go on stage and saying the words and all this different stuff. And I think ultimately what I kind of gleaned from him and just from my experience is that the words don't actually matter as much as sometimes we want them to. And not to say that they don't matter, because definitely writing is an art form, and beautiful writing in a movie or a play can make the movie or the play, depending. But good improv and good acting, I mean, I agree where, you don't have a lot of people like maybe depend on the guide rails of writing too much when they go on to a regular play. But I think if somebody is a really, really talented actor, then they should also be a really talented improviser. And if they're not, then it's going to show in their acting, because I think the skill of an improviser is somebody who's able to prepare. And by prepare, I mean they're able to fill themselves with like a feeling or an action or an intention before they begin. And it shows, like, people know that you are prepared when you get up and improvise well, the same way as when you get up and act well.
Yeah, I think most of my favorite scenes in movies, and then scenes that I've created myself, have always been ones that, either just straight up improv or something has gone wrong and we've had to think of on our feet. Some of the most famous instances in movies that people love everywhere, I'm walking here in that movie, that's all just like, that just comes out of the moment. And I just think you can never, the best things can't be written, I think. The writing gets you to those things, but you can't outright write some of those moments, I think. But,
Yeah.
Improvising is just, touching the flames of God. So
yeah.
yeah.
But do you have any final thoughts, Jeremiah?
Do I have any final thoughts? I have been staring at your faces frozen for the past 30 minutes, and Hayden is sort of smiling just a little bit of darkness in his eyes. I wonder what's behind those dark blue eyes. Yannick's eyes look like shark eyes, and I like that too.
Well, we appreciate you being on, Jeremiah, and this, what are we calling it? What are we calling
This episode?
Well, not this
Touching
episode.
the Flames of God.
Oh, Touching the Flames of God, obviously, yeah.
Touching the flames of God, yeah.
With Jeremiah. So yeah, we'll be sure to have this, that video will be up as you're listening to this podcast. So check that out. Check Do the Math as well. We're going to put that in the description. And we get to see all types of Jeremiah in his many personas, many channeling, channeling people that he puts out to the world. But I really appreciate this conversation, and thanks for being on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's just been the experience of a lifetime.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you.
Have a blessed day.
Can't wait to see you again.
Love you.
And make another video.
I'm just very glad that Jeremiah's doing acting stuff again, because for a while, I mean, I know he'd always come back around to it, but for a long time he had like a phase where he was doing like this fitness stuff and this other stuff, and I think he just needed like a moment to gather himself in the world after college. But it seems like he's like turning around now and kind of pursuing what I think he would probably have always pursued, but kind of heading that way again, and it makes me really happy.
I think
he's one of my biggest inspirations.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, he has the talent. These two videos are going to be in the description of You Do the Math and Joe Lieber's. And you can see like same acting style, but completely different characters. So I think it's a good idea of like both comedy, both kind of a sense of like just kind of a one guy doing his thing.
Yeah.
But you can see him totally being two different people.
Being that slug.
Yeah, being the slug.
Doing the dirty work.
Slug. But
In another life that he could have been.
It's kind of interesting how I would say I'm on a similar boat with this, but how COVID has kind of brought a lot of these entertainers out, because like I was always like kind of wanting something, and then maybe it was because of such like the lowest low of COVID, of me doing absolutely nothing, where like I just kind of skyrocketed out of that. And I've noticed like hearing Jeremiah's story, and Connor has a similar story. There's a lot of people that after coming out of COVID, we've literally like rised as like a phoenix in the ashes, and are like all doing what we've been wanting to do for years, but we just needed something to stop.
We've seen how fragile it is.
We're like, okay, we don't got that many years until the next one.
We're like all 2 drinks in after making it through that perpetually.
But it's interesting hearing that story time and time again of like after having this low going into. I mean, I'm glad that he's coming back into wanting to continue acting and doing a play, like getting this whole thing
that's huge,
worked out.
Putting it's a lot of work, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he's jumping in there for sure.
Do you think it's fading right now? Do you hear the fade?
I actually can hardly hear myself already. I'm almost gone.
Okay, I think.
Are you still talking? I can't.
No,
tell.
I haven't been.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I have. But
I can hear you
myself.
talking in my head. Just it's not coming